the ninth episode of Step Up with Natasha. Thank you so much for all of you who are joining in right now and giving me this hour of your quarantine time. Today, the guest that I have, I've already spoken a lot about his achievements in my previous videos, and I really want to talk about who he is. To be honest, in fact, this is something that I learned from him only, that when you talk about someone, not in terms of what they have achieved or what they have done, but in terms of who they are, that really like shifts the whole conversation. That is the difference that you make. So, if I may say so, I have learned two things from him, and because I've followed his work a lot. So, one thing I can definitely say is that this man really stands up in his own own true story and really owns it up in a way, and it's so beautiful to see him doing that, that it gives you the wings and the conviction and the courage that you should also own your story and stand in your own honest truth. And the second thing is that because he has counseled hundreds of couples and he does that every year, the understanding and comprehension that he has of the issues that couples have, and the way he breaks it down to the root cause and the solutions that he provides, it's so beautiful because it's not like you have to go literally a way out of your comfort zone. These are such small and such important things, part of your daily routine. Like you just might have to tweak a bit here or add a bit here, and it makes all the difference. And it's just beautiful. I mean, when I saw his videos, I was completely sold out in that. And one thing that I have to say is that if you still haven't watched his TED Talk, which has got some more than 3 million views, you must. He's one of the most engaging speakers I have ever come across. I've heard a lot of good speakers, I've heard a lot of best speakers, but the moment you start listening to him from the end to from the start to the end, you're completely hooked. So without any further ado, let me introduce you, Mr. Bruce Muzik.
Thank you. What a lovely introduction. I'm flattered and terrified now. I have to live up to all of that.
No, but thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you so much, because I have really followed your content, and you. I must say this. I really want to say this, that I saw your TED Talk, and you've been really one of the most engaging speakers I have actually come across. It was beautiful the way you conveyed the whole story, like the story, the concept of storytelling. It was beautiful what you did there.
Thank you. It's awesome, Natasha.
Okay, so diving straight into the conversation, I would actually want to start with something that I heard from your conversation with Eric, I believe. There was a, I guess, webinar, a podcast with him, wherein you started with there was a chunk of conversation where you said that women find men sexy when they are doing dishes rather than any other of their sexy image, right? And the way you broke it down and actually made the whole the whole process, that why is it so, I was actually convinced on whatever you said, and I really want you to share, because that was like really pearls of wisdom that you shared, that if you can share with my viewers as well, that why, rather than any other sexy
Sure.
image, why
Sure.
women find men doing dishes so sexy.
Well, there's two people whose work I'm going to call from or pull from
Okay.
to describe this. The first is Esther Perel, and she's a famous sex therapist, and she spent the last 30, 40 years, she's one of my mentors, and she tells the story of how she spent the last 30, 40 years traveling around the world, leading seminars, helping people improve their sex lives. And at every seminar, she would ask the same set of questions to her audience, and one of them was, when are you most attracted to your partner? And over 30, 40 years, she gathered all these answers together and started noticing patterns. And the most common answer to this question was when he's doing the dishes. Or maybe her question, no, I actually think her question was, what is one thing your partner could do to make them more attractive to you? And the most common answer was doing the dishes. And this ties in with another piece of research that I read, that women so there were some experiments that were done where men and women were presented with sexy images. Brains were hooked up to brain scanning equipment, and the scientists were measuring their response in their brain, and they noticed that, while they would show them landscapes and pictures of dogs, and then every now and then there'd be a couple making love. And they noticed with all the sexy pictures that both men and women became sexually aroused. But
Those are
in
different.
parts of the brain,
Yeah.
but in women, an extra part of the brain lit up in the prefrontal cortex, which is over here in the brain.
Right.
This part of the brain is concerned with making critical judgments, particularly around safety. And the scientists concluded that in women are preoccupied with safety when it comes to sex, both consciously preoccupied with safety and unconsciously preoccupied with safety. And men don't have that same preoccupation when it comes to sex, which may be why, during wartime, you can see men raping women, having sex while bombs are going off around them. You don't see women raping men during wartime. But what they concluded was that it's almost like in a woman's brain, there is this switch that is always turned on or at least triggered when it comes to sex, and it's like a doorway. And if that doorway is closed, if the woman doesn't perceive that she's safe, then her sexual arousal will switch off and won't be able to turn on. Even if she might normally be aroused by the situation that's happening around her or whatever it is that's going on, she won't be able to be turned on. And when I read that research and I remembered Esther Perel's thing about washing the dishes, it suddenly all made sense that washing the dishes says to your partner, your female partner, we're on the same team. I've got your back. You're not alone in this relationship. You're safe with me because I've got your back. Now, we don't live in caveman times anymore where literally, safety meant I'm going to get eaten by animals or I'm not going to get eaten by animals. Safety in these modern times is, can I count on you to be my teammate, to be my partner, to be the person that looks out for me, that I can count on to be there for me when I'm feeling down or when things are going badly. And so what washing the dishes signifies to many women is, hey, we're a team. And that is what opens up that or flicks that switch for the woman to open up to the idea of engaging sexually with a man. So it's not that washing the dishes is sexy in and of its own right. It's that safety is sexy to women. So I don't know if I did as good a job as I did on Eric's podcast explaining it, but that's the general idea behind it.
Yeah, so if I may reiterate, that meant that when a man is doing dishes, it basically signifies that we are together, like whatever there is in the world, in the family, we are together as a team, and you can completely rely on me. And that's what basically, just relaxes the woman, and she's more relaxed basically, and she's more comfortable, and that's what makes her all, unsafe, those radars go off, and then she's like, okay, this is safe, this is good, and I'm comfortable here. That's what.
Because that's exactly it. And the reason for it is that you've got to remember that in caveman, cavewoman times, if your man left you, if you're a woman and your man leaves you, you're dead. Like, an animal's going to eat you, especially if you have a baby. You're dead because you cannot hunt for food, because whenever you're holding the baby and you're hunting for food, the baby makes a noise and chases all the animals away, and you won't be able to catch any food. And if you leave the baby alone while you go hunting, the baby's going to get eaten by animals. So you're dead if your husband leaves you, or your partner, your caveman partner leaves you. And so it's wired into, and you've got to remember that caveman times were only 2 weeks ago, as far as the brain is concerned. As far as the evolution of our brain is concerned, that was like just a couple of weeks back. It was recently. So our amygdala, the reptilian part of our brain that's responsible for keeping us safe, is still wired as if there are animals that are going to eat us, and we need to know that our partner's got our back and they're not going to suddenly leave us and abandon us and we're going to die. And so when we feel unsafe, we may not be quaking in our boots afraid of being eaten by an animal, but the amygdala is active, the part of our brain that's responsible for our fight or flight response. And when the amygdala is active, the part of our brain that's responsible for reproduction and sexual arousal is inactive. It's another way to think of it. So what you're doing is calming the amygdala. So when you're calm and relaxed, that fight or flight mechanism isn't activated, so your natural sexual arousal can well, your sexual arousal can naturally emerge.
Okay. So taking that point forward, let's talk about, I mean, the same scenario, in the same context where a woman feels comfortable. How much would it affect when we talk about that, two opposites attracting? In fact, I really want to ask you this, that what would be the basically practically correct way? Because I know any situation can be worked out, but I'm sure as per your experience, what would be the more practically correct way that people who are very alike in their personalities, they actually work out better together, or people who are really opposite? And when I say opposite, this is a really vast playing field over here, because I'm talking about maybe like a travel mismatch, that I like to stay at home and he likes to go out, to also talking about that, he's sarcastic, I'm more intense, or he's more positive and I'm very negative.
Okay. So your question is there a kind of like a pairing that's more compatible or less compatible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Which
That's a great question.
Yeah, which also results in making the women feel safe, because that's where I derive my question from. That's like the second part of the question. Yeah.
I don't believe there are types that are. So I've studied personality typing a lot. It's one of my hobbies, and I've spent years geeking out on personality types. And I type all my customers as well. And I've worked with several thousand couples now. So I have a lot of experience working with couples of many different pairings, like with personality. And my wife and I, when we take personality tests, for example, like on the Myers-Briggs, we're completely opposite. We're the exact opposite. And I've seen every type of relationship work out. So I don't think there's a personality type that's more compatible or less compatible for you. I really don't believe that. I think there are personality types that have certain set of benefits and a certain set of drawbacks. And every type pairing is going to have a different set of benefits and drawbacks. But every type pairing has benefits and every type pairing has drawbacks, no matter how opposite you are. Now, we tend to be more drawn to people who are opposite from us in some areas because that's interesting, that's novel, that's new, and it's something different from what we know, from who we are. In my experience, we'll tend to attract our friends who are similar to us, but our partners who are opposite to us. And this causes a lot of challenge, which stimulates a lot of growth, or will drive you crazy, depending on you. And when I say depending on you, I mean depending on how you approach it. You can see your differences as a problem and try and change your partner to be more like you, in which case you won't be together very long, or you'll suffer in your relationship. Or you can embrace your differences and go, you know what? Our differences are amazing. My partner's got a lot to teach me, and learn from your partner. So, for example, my wife is completely different from me, and probably in one of the most important ways is that I'm a traveler. Like, I've lived in 7 different countries. I can't stay in one country longer than 6 weeks before I have to get in a plane and fly. Like, I've always been like that. I've visited almost 50 countries now, and I love traveling, and I always have. She's the complete opposite. She's a homebody. And she likes to stay at home and build a home. And so when we got together, I was going to be, in my mind, I was going to be dragging her around the world, and we were going to be traveling the world together. That was the only thing I was interested in a partner, was like somebody who could travel with me. She was like, I'm interested in travel, but like, I've got a business here, and it's a, she's a pastry chef. She makes wedding cakes. I can't just give up my business. And it forced me to have to stand still for longer than I was comfortable staying in one place. And I grew as a result of it. And I learned that I can stay in one place, and there are many benefits to it. And I've become a better man as a result of being with her. By the same token, I drag her out of her comfort zone regularly. And as uncomfortable as it is for her sometimes, I'm like, babe, we got plane tickets. We fly tomorrow morning. We're going to Colombia. Let's go. And I drag her, around the world with me, and she's become less boring. I've become less unrooted, and I've become more grounded, and she's become less boring. And so we grow together. Another example would be like, she's a neat freak, I joke, and she calls me a messy bastard. And I'm more free with my things in space, and she's much more controlled. And together we've had to meet each other halfway. Now, a lot of couples fight over those kind of things. And the more neat partner will try and change the less neat partner and the less neat partner or the more messy partner will feel controlled and unaccepted the way that they are. And the more neat partner will feel disrespected, and they'll end up fighting about it because they don't appreciate and respect the differences and understand the differences and use those differences as an opportunity to grow. So I think if you don't use your differences as an opportunity to grow, you're going to hate your relationship and you're going to suffer if you're with somebody who's different from you. But if you do accept that they have something to teach you, then you've got the greatest teacher in the world and you've got an incredible growth opportunity. So here are some of the drawbacks I've noticed of being with somebody who's opposite. It's going to be hard to live together because you both want different things out of living together. Like my wife, I'm banned from our kitchen. I'm not even allowed to cook anymore. She's like, because she's a chef, right? So her kitchen is like her haven. She's like, get up. If you want food, I'll cook for you, but you are not allowed in the kitchen anymore because you're not tidy enough, right? And I'm like, okay, suits me fine. But like, we've had to learn to live together. I've had to learn to seriously up my game when it comes to being organized and neat and tidy. And I've taken on the challenge. I could have just rebelled and then we would have fought all the time. So couples who are opposite tend to struggle until they figure it out, in the beginning at least, to get along in their relationship. But their attraction never wavers. I experience. Okay, obviously, this is not a rule. It's just in my observation. So there'll be a lot more sexual spark between the two of them. And because they're so different, they'll want to come together sexually and they'll be attracted to each other. Couples who are similar, I've noticed, they struggle with the sexual attraction over the long term because it wanes quickly, but they live together very easily because they're so compatible when it comes to living together. They live in the same way, but they have to do the work on keeping their sexual attraction alive. And so in this way, every type pairing has different benefits and drawbacks. And you can't say that one type of person, the more similar you are, the better you are. No, the more similar you are, the easier it is to live together, but you're going to have to work in another area. So that's the way I view it.
Beautifully put by you. I mean, I actually, in fact, to be honest, never thought like that people who are very compatible in terms of staying together, they might actually have to struggle when it comes to their sexual energy because they might start with really great, amazing physical relationship, but then eventually I think that would really run off because they are just too alike. That's exactly. Actually a very good perspective that I had right now. So tell me one thing, what is your take in terms of live-in? Because I believe that live-in gives you that space where you can, because we are talking about knowing the other person in all its sense. What is your take on that? Because I'm asking this question from a very cultural context. I tell you why. I come from India, and India, I would say, started picking up trend somewhere close to 12 years back when I was growing up. And when any new thing comes and you have your parents' generation having a take on that. So I was having this conversation with my mother and I was trying to give her a better perspective because according to her it was like, it'll all become more easier to have sex. So I was just trying to give her a better perspective that, it is in fact good because people would understand each other better and the chances of blowing off the marriage would be lesser. So she said something which I don't know, I've not been ever married, so I don't know if it's right or not, but it just stayed with me. And she said, why marriages in earlier period used to be successful, they used to stay together, because after getting married for the longest period of time, those people spent time to understand each other. And you people already know so much about each other even before getting into marriage that there's nothing left when you're married. So that sort of stayed with me. That do you think that live-in actually gives you this whole, opens the gateway where you know each and everything about each other, and that's a spoiler? Do you also, what is your take on that?
No, I would challenge your mom on that because I think you can keep growing and getting to know something. You will never run out of things to know about your partner if you're committed to learning the depths of who they are. If you keep it just on the surface, sure, you'll run out of things to say to each other in a few weeks. And that's how you know that you're not probably with somebody who wants to go that deep. But, I think there's advantages to both. Again, it's not that I don't want to take sides. It's that I can see it from both perspectives. even arranged marriages have many benefits, which your culture is famous for. And the benefits of an arranged marriage is that, the culture keeps you together and you're forced to figure it out or suffer. You're forced to figure it out. Like, okay, well, I'm with this person now. I can't go anywhere. Let me, get to know them and appreciate them for who they are. And that's the foundation of a great marriage, is getting to know someone and appreciating them for who they are. By the same token, I would never want to do that for myself personally, because I want to make sure that I live with someone, I have sex with someone before I ever think of marrying them, years before, so that I don't make a bad choice and get married to someone who clearly we don't have a lot of common ground or mutuality. So that brings us back to, well, a question that you haven't asked, but that I think is relevant. Is like, well, does that mean you could marry anybody and get along with anybody? And I don't think so necessarily. There's certain criteria that you have to have figured out first, and sometimes I call these requirements, and they're kind of like your deal breakers. And there are very few requirements. That most people have very few requirements. I mean, when I work with couples, I get them to do their requirements list, and it's usually 2, 3 requirements max. And if those requirements aren't met, the relationship is generally over. Like, it's not going to work out. Like, a requirement might be children or no children. Like, my wife has 2 children. One of my requirements was I do not want children. Because of my travel lifestyle, I've never wanted to settle down in one place for 20 years to have to look after children. Not that I don't love children, I love kids. My wife's kids are amazing. They're 22 and 18, and I'm thrilled to have them in my life. And so had she said to me, I want to have a child with you, I would have said, I love you, and we're over, not because you've said anything wrong, but there's just no way we can have half a child. I can't give you the child that you want and still be me and live the life I choose to live in this life, and I will never be able to give you the child that you want. And fortunately, she was like, the last thing I want is another child. I have 2 already. If you want children, get out of my life too. So we were fine. That was a deal breaker. Another deal breaker might be religion. Like, I'm working with a couple right now in my couples coaching practice at loveatfirstfight.com, where they've been married for 18 years as Muslims, and she's just left the Muslim church, and he wants to divorce her. He can't handle it. It's too much for him, and he's not willing to compromise. And they may be over shortly. It's a deal breaker. It's a requirement. But usually our requirements are few and far between. They're the very most fundamental parts of who we are. So you can marry somebody completely opposite for you as long as your requirements are met. You can figure out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, most people make the mistake of thinking their needs are requirements. And needs are different from requirements in that requirements have only one way to be met. For example, I want children. There's only one way to meet that need, to have babies or adopt babies, or, babies is the only way to meet that need for I want children. You can't have half a baby, but a need, there are multiple ways to meet needs. So for example, you might say, I want a relationship with integrity. And then somebody says, my husband doesn't have integrity, And I'll say to you, no, that's not true. There's nobody in the world who doesn't have integrity in every area of their life. We all have integrity in areas that are important to us to have integrity. And you can meet that need for integrity in multiple different ways. Or somebody might say, I have the need for touch. My husband doesn't like touch. Maybe we're not good together. I'm like, no, your husband can touch you. There's multiple ways for him to meet that need with you. He could hold your hand. We can make requests. We can work on it. We can compromise and work with each other. There are multiple ways to meet our needs. Mostly people struggle with needs, not requirements, because if the requirements are unmet, the relationship's over pretty quickly. So that was a little bit of a side detour from your original question, but I think both can work. Getting married, even in an arranged marriage, I've met so many couples that are in arranged marriages that are happy. So I think it depends on what your values are. As a more modern culture, we're less, as women are now in the workplace earning their own money and not dependent on men, marriage is no longer, the function of marriage is no longer to support
Provide and
uh,
be able.
to support a
Yeah.
woman financially so that a woman can bring up the children and stay at home and a man can go and work. Those separate roles have now merged together where women are in the workplace with men and they've got a nanny at home looking after the kids. And so now, instead of being together for survival, like we were with caveman and cavewoman, it was physical survival. The man would literally protect the woman from the nasty animals because he was bigger and stronger and the hunter, while the woman would look after the children. Then we emerged that women could work on with machines, and they entered the workplace firstly plowing the fields, and suddenly women didn't need men to protect them from nasty animals, and it suddenly became more about making life easier together. And now we're in a whole new world where women can work behind a laptop and don't even have to go to work and work on machines anymore. So now we're together not because we need a man to look after us and protect us from the wild animals, not even because we need a man for money anymore. So the next developmental level is, oh, I'm with you because I want to be known for who I am. And so the whole function of marriage is no longer, well, we're together in an arranged marriage because that's survival and joining of families together to further the power and the wealth of our family. It's now we're together. No, I want a partner who I can be intimate with, who I can feel known, who I can grow spiritually with. It's a whole different requirement. And so in that case, we might want to live in together first to go, well, is this the person? Because if our spiritual beliefs are different, well, that's a deal breaker. So, yeah, that's my take on it.
I'll surely share your 2 cents with my mom. I'll definitely show her this part of the video for sure. But okay, tell me one thing. How important, according to you, are breaks? Because this is again one trend that has been really picking up, where people do not break up. They are like, you know what? Let's just work it out by taking a break. I want to see how it goes, how my mental state is. How do you think that breaks are really good for a relationship to strengthen or not? And if they are, then is there any correct structure, correct way to structure the break time so that the two people come out of it together and stronger?
Yeah, I like this question, and it's another one where I'm going to sound like I'm not taking sides because I'm not taking sides because I've seen both.
Right.
Generally, I think breaks are horrible. Generally,
Right.
mostly because when a couple takes a break, they don't do any work on their relationship or on themselves. They just stop seeing each other. So by the time they come back together, or by the time the break is over and they're meant to come back together, nothing has changed because they've just been lazy, hanging out with their friends, or maybe even dating other people, but nothing's changed in their relationship. So they think about going back to their relationship at the end of the break, and they're like, it's the same old relationship it was before. I haven't changed. He hasn't changed. Why would I want to go back to that? And they often split up after a break. The break is usually the death knell for the relationship, only because the couple doesn't use the break consciously to do the work on themselves to figure stuff out. If they do, then a break can be good. Now, another area or another time when breaks can actually benefit a relationship is when there's been a lot of damage to the relationship and the couple are just spiraling, hurting each other more and more and more. And the turtle partner, let me just explain my language quickly to your viewers. So in most relationships, when the relationship arrives at what I call the power struggle stage, after the drugs of the romance stage wear off and you arrive at the second stage of development called the power struggle, where you're, in fact, let me just I'm going to take 30 seconds to explain the whole concept quickly, just because it'll make more sense. So we fall in love. For the first 6 months to 2 years, our brain is producing a whole lot of love drugs, oxytocin, serotonin, vasopressin, dopamine. We fall in love. This is the romance stage, and we love it. It lasts 6 months to 2 years, and then the drugs wear off, and suddenly you wake up and, oh my God, who's this person that I'm with? And so then we separate, and this is the power struggle stage. Some couples separate so much, they lose the relationship. But this is also the stage where you're meant to find your autonomy. And the idea is that you end up in a relationship where you have both your partnership and the two of you separate. So you have your own separate lives from each other, and you have your communal life as partners.
Right.
Most couples don't make it past the power struggle stage. They end up fighting so much that they end up breaking up. But if you make it past the power struggle stage, and it could last 20, 30 years if you never make it past it, and you'll torture each other for 20, 30 years. But then you enter the mature love stage where you're able to flex between dependence and independence, and being appropriately dependent and appropriately independent in a way that supports both of you growing and makes your life better for being together. Now, in the power struggle stage, this dynamic emerges where one partner tends to chase the other one to try and get them to respond, and the other one tends to withdraw. And then the other one chases more, and the other one withdraws. And I call the one who withdraws the turtle, because they're like a turtle, they retreat into their shell. And I call the one who chases the hailstorm, because they kind of like rain a hailstorm down on their partner. The hailstorm tends to escalate. They get angry, they get loud and vocal, they get critical, and they're sometimes needy, and they're afraid of being abandoned. So they chase. The turtle tends to numb themselves emotionally, withdraw, and run away from conflict. And they shut down and they disengage. And they're afraid of rejection. And when they disengage, it triggers the hailstorm's very worst fear of abandonment. So the hailstorm chases. The more the hailstorm chases and gets critical in hailstorms, it triggers the turtle's very worst fear of rejection and being judged. And so they retreat. And this couple goes round and round and round in circles until they break up, driving each other crazy. Now, in the power struggle, hang on a second. Natasha, you're going to have to remind me what your original question was, because I've just lost my train of thought.
Break. That breaks are good,
Break.
and if
Okay,
they are
so
good, then the structure.
exactly. Okay, thank you. So in the power struggle stage of relationships, when a couple takes a break, if they're not resolving the conflict of the power struggle, they'll come back together and the power struggle will continue again. It'll just start right up again. So the time when a break can actually work well is when the turtle has so withdrawn and they're so shut down, they're so numb, they're almost not even present anymore. They need a break in order to bring their heart back online, to reconnect with their own hearts so they can start feeling again. And so often when the hailstorms become so critical, so demanding, so needy, the turtles just feels like they've been beaten off into their shell. That's when a break is good. And a break, I mean, for like 2-3 weeks, set time for the turtle to just be able to re-engage. Immediately when the break is over, this couple should go straight into therapy or get some help so that they don't start up their pattern and cycle all over again.
Stuck in the same
because because trying to do therapy or trying to fix the relationship when the turtle is in their shell is futile, because the turtle's not able to empathize. They're not able to be warm because they've literally severed the connection to their heart, and they don't feel. They're numb. And without the connection to their heart, they cannot be compassionate. They cannot be empathetic. You'll ask them how they feel, and they'll be like, I don't know, fine. And when their partner's in pain, they don't feel any compassion for their partner, because their partner, that requires empathy, and they're incapable of empathy when they're numb. So that's the only time in my experience when a break can really be good. Or occasionally, when a couple has been together for 20 years, one partner's bored and they want to go explore, they say, I need a break. Right. They go off and they explore, the relationship looks like it's over, they start dating other people, and they realize what they had. And they're like, oh my God, my husband was actually amazing. Like, compared to all these jerks I'm dating right now, like, holy crap, he was amazing. And I didn't really appreciate it because, and this is usually in couples who got married young. So they've been together since they were 18 years old. And, now they're 45. And she's like, I've only ever had sex with one man. And like, all my friends are telling me about the fun they're having. Like, I want to explore what else is out there. I know this guy inside out. I'm bored. And so she goes, you know what? I think I want a divorce, but let's take a break. She goes out and she starts dating and meets all these other men, ends up having sex with them, and realizes that, you know what I had with my husband was incredible. He's an amazing, loyal, incredible man. What was I thinking? And they get back together afterwards. That's not common, but it does happen. And in that context, it's very painful for the husband to understand. And, you can't stop people growing when they want to grow. So she wants to grow, and she's like, I need to go and explore this. Otherwise, I will never be satisfied. I will always be questioning on a relationship. And it's hard. And he grows in the process, and their relationship grows stronger together, or it breaks up. If it grows stronger together, fantastic, and that's what I try and get them to do.
Right. In fact, it's good that you touched upon that point, because I was actually about to ask you that, especially in the break period, when you are in that break zone and you feel physically or sexually attracted to someone else, according to you, would that be called as cheating? In fact, forget about the break. I'm saying that even when couples are there for the longer period of time, especially in this quarantine, when they're staying together, when they've had too much of physical intimacy, you feel sexually attracted to someone, even in a relationship. Would that be cheating? And how to communicate the same? Like, should you be even having this conversation with your partner about this whole thing?
Well, being sexually attracted to another person cannot be cheating, because here's the thing: none of us have control over who we're attracted to. Like, we don't consciously go, oh, I think I would like to be attracted to Natasha now. She's a pretty girl. I think I'd like to be attracted. No, I'm attracted to you or not. Like, I have no control over my attraction for anybody in the world. So anybody who's married and says they're not sexually attracted to anybody else is flat out a liar. They're just a liar. Like, that's not true. We, as human beings, are always attracted to the people we're attracted to, whether we're married or not. Now, some couples like to talk about that. It depends. If your partner is hypersensitive to that kind of thing and is insecure, and it would make them feel insecure, I wouldn't bother telling them, because I don't see any benefit in saying, oh, I went to the supermarket and I saw this really sexy guy, like, he really turns me on, man, and I was like thinking and fantasizing about it. There's no purpose to that. Like, what's the point? It's not going to help your marriage. In fact, it will probably just make your husband feel insecure, and it's, yeah, no purpose to that. But, some couples like to talk about that, and that's something that turns them on and gets them even more attracted to each other. That separation, that thought of thinking about your partner being attracted to somebody else reminds you that, I'm not the only one in the world for them. And that little bit of separation and anxiety actually creates attraction for, like, I should be grateful for my partner, because they could leave me for another person, and I want to connect with them again. It depends. It depends on the couple, how secure you are together, how solid you are together, your culture. For me personally, unless I was curious, I don't have to tell my wife about the woman I saw outside today who, I thought was really attractive. But sometimes my wife will tell me about a man that she finds, like, even last night, she told me. We were watching a YouTube video so we both ride motorbikes, my wife and I. We've ridden all around the world on motorbikes together, and we follow this guy. He's an Australian guy, and we were watching one of his videos on YouTube last night, and she was like, "Ooh, it's Adam. I think he's so hot." And like, it's playful. I'm not threatened by it. He's some, like, random guy in Australia who rides dirt bikes and makes YouTube videos of his adventures on dirt bikes. But we've been watching him for 5 years. We feel like we know him, and we're fans. And she finds him really attractive, and we talk about him, we laugh about him, and it's playful. It's not something that scares us, but every couple is different.
But okay, here we are talking about, okay, we went out on a supermarket and stuff, but I'm talking about, what if that, the person that you're feeling all this pent up sexual energy with, actually you might be working with them. They might be one of your colleagues, or like in such close proximity that it's very hard for you as well to just keep on shushing the topic, just push it under the rug. In that situation, do you think that, it is important to actually then have that conversation with your partner? And if it is, because I'm sure that you cannot also, suffocate yourself, not letting it out. What is the right way to communicate this to your partner, that your partner doesn't feel inadequate of their own selves?
Okay, so I think it depends on you. And I would say, if you know that you're attracted to one of your work colleagues and it's getting out of hand for you, like, you feel like, I might even can see myself cheating, like, I'm so attracted, then I would suggest you go talk to your partner. But the way you talk to them, I'll get to that in a second. If you're like, I just got a crush, I just think he's hot, and I know this will never go anywhere, I know I can trust myself not to cheat, I wouldn't bother sharing it with your partner because you're in control. And you know that you're loyal and you're faithful and you're not going to cheat, and you don't need to share it with your partner unless that's the kind of thing that you guys commonly do, and you know that'd be comfortable and it would be something that would actually be sexy for the two of you to talk about, and you could talk about it openly. But generally, for the average person, I would say that's not necessary. If you don't trust yourself to be able to stay faithful, then I would say you have to go talk to your partner, and you've got to go not say to them, hey, I think I'm going to cheat on you, because that's just going to ruin their sense of safety in the relationship. I would say that the two of you have to talk about why and what it is, why you're a person, and what it is about that person that is not being met in your marriage, and how can the two of you work together to get it met in your marriage. So let's say you've tried multiple times to talk about your feelings with your partner. Let's say you're a woman. I hear this from women all the time, okay? And the guy is shut down. He's a man's man who's kind of like macho and doesn't talk about feelings. And suddenly, she finds this work colleague at work, and he sits and just listens. And like they have lunch together, and they sit in the cafeteria together at work, and she talks about her challenges, and he's actually interested, and he listens for hours. And over the course of 6 months, he's probably spent 30, 40 hours listening to her. And she realizes one day, my work colleague knows me better than my husband does, and I've been married to him for 30 years. And suddenly all these feelings start coming up inside of her. And she's like, oh my God, this is the kind of relationship I want. I'm feeling so attracted to this person. All I want to do is just lean over and make out with him. I was like, okay, go to your husband at this point and say, honey, I'm noticing, and firstly, I love you, and I need to have a conversation with you. And I want you to know that I love you, and I'm totally, this conversation is not something you should be afraid of. I want to share something with you that's happening in my life, and it's important and it relates to our marriage. Do you have time to sit down with me and have the conversation? Like, you want to set it up like this. What you don't want to do is say, honey, we need to talk, because that'll put the fear of God into him.
Yeah.
You set it up like, everything's going to be fine. You said, look, I want you to know, firstly, I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life loving you more. And I've noticed something's coming up, and I need to share it with you because it's important and it affects our marriage. And I want you to know that what I have to share with you might scare you, but you have nothing to fear because I'm not going anywhere and I love you. So there's this guy at work, and we started having lunch together, and he's probably spent 50 hours listening to me talk. And the other day I realized that he knows me better than you do. And I started having feelings for him. And nothing has happened between us, and nothing will happen between the two of us. And I need you to know this because I want to have those kind of feelings for you again. And the reason why I have feelings for him is because he's meeting a need of mine that isn't being met in our marriage. Not because of any fault of you or me, but because we just haven't figured out how to meet it yet. And the need that's being met is he knows me. He listens to me attentively, and I can talk to him about anything. I'd like to start a conversation, a dialogue with you about how we can have that happen in our marriage, because it's important to me. And if it doesn't happen, I'm afraid these feelings will get stronger and stronger. I'm not going to cheat on you. I love you, but I'm struggling. And I'm struggling not because I'm in love with this man, but because these feelings are something I yearn for inside. And I want to feel them from you, from us, from our marriage. Would you be open to trying to get some help to learn how to talk like this, to open up so that we can talk about something deeper than just how our day was and what we're having for breakfast and taking the kids to school and like that. That's how I would present it. And he's going to come around or he's not. But if you threaten the relationship, he will never come around. He'll be terrified, and you'll probably lose the relationship and end up having an affair. So if you go in there saying, if you don't change, I need this thing, we're over, then he's going to feel inadequate, because usually these people are turtles, and their biggest fear is rejection, and he'll feel judged, like, oh my God, I don't even know how to manage feelings. Like, I don't even know what she's talking about. Like, I don't even know what she and this guy have, because feelings, I don't do feelings. Like, I numb them, right? I'm a turtle. So how am I going to ever get in touch with feelings? So I suggest getting help, like getting a good coach or therapist who works with emotional intelligence and who teaches this stuff, so that the man can learn how to enter her world and isn't threatened, because most turtles will be threatened by this conversation because they don't like feelings. Like, I don't think I'm even capable of doing what this guy at work does for her. Shit, I'm going to lose my wife. And this will cause him to panic, and like that. So that's how I'd approach it.
Right. But the way you actually built it up, it was so impactful. I think the guy, he would just pack the bags and he would say, honey, listen, let's just go for a vacation. And I have all the time in the world
Yeah,
to listen to you. It is
yeah.
the way you exactly portrayed it. But that also, because when you were talking about the turtle thing and all, that is also because, is it because of the different personalities, the personality clashes that, one is not able to communicate that much? I mean, even if you love someone, but it's not necessary that, I'm very good at expressing my feelings for you, or, I might be able to convey what I really feel for you, right?
I'm not sure it's a personality trait. I think it's a learned behavior, and it's what psychologists call an adaptive behavior, meaning
Right.
it's an adaptation to a childhood environment where there was no support for emotion. So turtles, generally, and I'm speaking in broad terms here, turtles tend to be very out of touch with their feelings because when they were younger children, nobody helped them work with their own emotions. So they never learned to navigate the world of emotion. And when they were stuck in pain, nobody came to help them. Maybe mom just let them cry on their own. And as a young babies are incapable of soothing themselves, and they don't have language yet. They don't understand their feelings. They're completely dependent on their mother to take away their pain. So a good mother will pick up a child, rock the child in her arms, talk to the child, make noises with the child until the child is soothed and feels safe. Depending on your culture, like for example, my mom read a book by Dr. Spock back in the 70s that said when children are crying, they should be left to cry because otherwise they'll become codependent and unhealthily dependent on you. And so, she kind of let me cry some of the time, and other times she picked me up and rocked me. And that, created a strategy. I created a strategy as a young baby to get my needs met. Turtles, their strategy is nobody's coming, so the only way to get rid of the pain is to sever my heart, to shut it down, to numb it, to repress it, to whatever, compartmentalize it, whatever you want to do. So turtles have grown up their entire life trying to avoid Pandora's box over there, stuffed with 40, 50 years of feelings that they haven't felt. And so they don't want to go anywhere near the box because they're terrified if they open that box, all those feelings will burst out and kill them and overwhelm them. And so they need help, and they can be trained. It's not a personality trait. It's a strategy that they've developed. Just like learning to write with your right hand. Like I'm right-handed, but if my right hand got chopped off, I could learn to write with my left, and I would learn to write with my left. It would take time, but I would learn. And so I don't think it's a personality thing. And why I'm making a big deal about this is that generally personality traits are fixed in that they don't change throughout our life. We might adapt and grow a little bit, but they generally stay the same. If you're extrovert for most of your life. But with these, they're called attachment styles, the hailstorm and turtle. The turtle is usually the one who's shut down and numbed. The hailstorm feels too much, almost. And these two opposites fall in love, I would say, 9 times out of 10. So you're one person who feels too much and is desperate to connect, and you've got another person who feels too little, and they want nothing to do with connection. So the hailstorm keeps on going like, connect to me, and like the turtle keeps going, ah! And they run away, and really the hailstorm needs to learn how to soothe themselves a bit more and calm themselves down. And the turtle needs to know how to come forward and access their emotions and help the hailstorm. And when these two learn to work as a team together, and that's a lot of my work is teaching couples to break this dynamic, they can heal. The turtle becomes more emotionally intelligent. The hailstorm becomes less demanding and critical, and the two of them stabilize and become a lot calmer in the middle.
Right. But even in that case, if someone ends up cheating, how to actually come out of it stronger? Do you think that even after cheating, a relationship can work? Because this takes me back to one of the videos that I saw of Oprah's. And there was a couple sitting, and the wife was complaining that the husband cheated on her, and the husband said that, I've been trying ever since. So what Oprah said was that if you said that you have forgiven him, you really need to drop there right there and then and move on. You just can't keep on bringing back again and again in the present time and make it miserable for him. So which I believe that a lot of couples do. If one of the person actually end up cheating, and if they still make a conscious decision to make it to work on it, but then the conscious decision also involves that, we are not going to talk about it. If you said that you've forgiven me, then that means that, it's done. Let's not bring it into the present over and over again and make me feel guilty about it. Right? But still, people who get cheated on, they still feel so much of betrayal that they can't help but keep bringing it on. Right?
Okay, I know what you're saying, and that doesn't work. Let's just say, forgive and forget does not work for betrayals of trust. Okay, and I'll tell you why. But before I tell you why, let me just, to your point, bringing back the past and beating your partner over the head with it and punishing them equally doesn't work. That's just unfair.
Right.
If you've said, I forgive you, and 3 months later you start feeling insecure, the rule that I can't bring it up because now I've said I forgive you means you've got no way to work through your feelings with your partner. You're now stuck if you start feeling insecure. But constantly bringing it up and saying, beating your partner over the head and saying, you need to do X, Y to make me feel better, that's equally bad. There's a middle ground. And to understand how this works, you've got to understand the difference between, or you've got to understand what happens in betrayals. So especially when there's been an affair or cheating, the partner who says, I forgive you, the partner who was cheated on, when they say, I forgive you, what they're saying is, I choose to stop suffering.
Yeah.
What they're not saying is, I trust you. They're not saying, I trust you. They're saying, I choose to stop suffering about this. I'm going to move on in my life. And that works fine with people you don't care about and people you don't love. Because it doesn't matter whether or not you trust them. So for example, let's say I catch my house cleaner reading my personal diary that I keep next to my bed as she's cleaning my bed. Okay? I walk into the bedroom, there she is, she's paging through my personal diary. She looks up at me and she looks horribly guilty and she says, oh, I'm so sorry. And she puts the book and says, like, don't worry, I forgive you. Like, it's totally fine. I understand you might be curious. Don't worry about it. Doesn't matter. I might not trust her anymore to read the book, but it doesn't matter. She's my house cleaner. As long as I know she's not going to steal my stuff, I'm fine with it. I don't need to trust her. Like, fine, she reads my book. Who cares? But if it's my partner and I don't trust my partner, and I can forgive them but still not trust them, my relationship's destroyed, because a relationship is built on a foundation of trust. So what happens is in affairs, they have the conversation. Let's say, for example, the husband cheats. The wife says, I forgive you. But she still feels insecure about it. She still doesn't trust her husband. She's going to keep going back to him and say, the next time she sees him on Facebook and sees a woman's Facebook feed, she's going to feel insecure. Who is that?
Yeah.
And he's going to go, hey, you can't talk about this anymore. You just got to trust me. And she's like, I don't trust you. So you have to do two things in an affair. You have the partner who's being cheated on has to get to a place where they can forgive and they choose to consciously let this lie. And in order to get there, trust has to be restored first, because otherwise the relationship is going to be destroyed, and she's going to keep coming back to him and keep coming back. So when I hear a partner say to me, my wife just like, I told her I love her, I told her I'm sorry, like, why wouldn't you just let this go already? I'm like, because you haven't restored trust with her. She doesn't trust you again. Now, that isn't always the cheating person's problem. Sometimes the person who was cheated on is so insecure and they've had so much trauma in their past that nothing would make them restore trust. And they need to do some work on themselves too, because the husband genuinely is remorseful and has genuinely done everything. So here's what needs to happen. Trust needs to be restored, and there's a conversation that I teach my clients that they go through. And then when the wife comes back 3 months later, after having said, I forgive you, she's not allowed to go and point fingers and say, who's that person you're looking at on Facebook? But she is allowed to say, honey, I'm feeling insecure. I saw a woman on your Facebook feed, and suddenly this feeling of terror came through me, and I felt the same way I felt when I discovered that you'd had an affair. I need some reassurance, and I need to understand who that person is. Would you reassure me that everything's okay between the two of us? That's totally okay, because that's vulnerable. And she's making a request and going, this is my insecurity that's coming up. Can you help me? She's not pointing a finger going, hey, you cheating bastard. Like, who's that you're looking at? I don't trust you, which is an accusation, critical, basically threatening. And so that's how to handle it. And over time, if he continues to support her when she continues to ask, instead of getting frustrated with going, hey, this is over. Like, we've had this conversation. You can't talk about this anymore. He welcomes it and says, honey, I'm sorry you're feeling insecure. This was somebody who came up my Facebook feed. I don't know the person. This is who they are. I love you, and I'm not going anywhere, and you're safe with me. Like, come here. Let me give you a hug, and I'll show you that I love you. After the third or fourth time he does this, she'll learn to trust. Whenever I go to him, he's there for me. And she'll become less anxious, and she won't want to go to him anymore. And after 6 to 8 months, she'll be healed, and that affair will be healed. But he's going to be available, and she's going to be willing to be vulnerable.
Yeah, I think it all makes sense the way you communicate the same thing. I mean, the way you showed the difference that either you can actually be hammering him that, who is this person, or you can be really vulnerable and share your vulnerability. I think I always say that vulnerability takes a lot more strength than to be actually strong, right? So I think when you show that weak side, not weak, but that, this is what I'm feeling, and like you always say that, own your story, no matter whatever it is, that stand true to whatever it is you're feeling. When you are showing that side, it's not possible that the other person won't be moved by it and won't actually be willing to help you out, right? Beautiful. I think you beautifully put it. And okay, I'm jumping to my last question. I know we have a very short time. Once two people have separated, actually, that nothing is working, how to be on good terms with your exes or with your ex-partners, or be friends in a way that, because you have to understand that one of you would definitely move into a relationship sooner than the other one, that you do not, it doesn't come onto your ego, and you don't feel that, okay, this person is doing this for him or her, he or she was not doing this with me. That comparison should not be there. How to actually move on like that?
When you say move on, what do you mean? You want to move on as in not talk to your ex anymore, or move on as in stay friends with your ex?
Yeah.
To be on good terms with your ex. Well, okay, two sides to this. One is the two of you, when you break up, need to do some therapy together or some work together, so that your breakup actually heals whatever it was, whatever the hurt was that caused you to break up. Because if you don't heal, the resentment will set in, and then you have to pretend to be nice to each other. And pretending to be nice to each other takes a lot of work, and it's inauthentic, and the kids will feel it if you have kids. There is something to be said for making the effort to pretend to be nice to each other if they're, because you can't always do the healing work. Sometimes one partner is just like, screw you, I never want to see you again, you cheated on me, you're a bad person, and we have kids together, but I'm just going to be civil to you. But deep down inside, I resent you and I hate you. And every attempt to heal the hurt hasn't worked. So sometimes you're stuck, and there's nothing you can do. Your partner is going to refuse to collaborate with you to try and heal the hurt. In which case, I would just say you've got to make a choice to see the humanity in that person's position. Like, they're human. And the reason they hate you right now is because they're hurt, not because they're a bad person, or not because they want to punish you, but because they're really hurt and they're in pain. And like anybody in pain, they're reacting from a very primal part of their brain, the amygdala and the brainstem, and they're hurt. And then your job is to help them. If especially if you are part of the hurt, is you got to help them by being a good human being, and being tolerant and being patient. And it is not easy, which is why I'm such an advocate for helping couples with children stay together. Because once you separate, co-parenting with different marriage, like I'm in a blended marriage with my wife has 2 kids, and I watch how her and her ex-husband co-parent. It's hard. I mean, they both got different ideas. They don't have open lines of communication. He still resents her for the divorce, and it's a shit show, man. It's like it's not easy, and it's much easier to work on healing and face your fears and be vulnerable and be and heal each other, even if it takes a year, than it is to get divorced. In the moment, getting divorced, because I signed those divorce papers, that person's out of my life and my problems are over. That person is never out of your life. If you've got kids, you've got that person in your life for the rest of your life. Every time you have Christmas together or religious celebrations or family celebrations, that person ain't going anywhere. And then you're going to have to dread getting together with your family because you have a bad relationship with your ex. It's a lot easier to heal your marriage than it is to get divorced in the long run.
Right, right. So in the end, I think let's talk about that, how it's really important, whether you are struggling in a relationship or whether even if you are getting out of a relationship, how important and the significance of coaching and getting the right coach. I think a lot of people still consider coaching as something that, a lot of people have that confidence that I can go through this by myself, or I don't need that expert advice. But I advocate this, that if there's someone, they are made for this, they know this in and out, and that's what they do day in and day out, and you should always look out for help, right?
I'll give you a metaphor here. I'm well known for saying that the number one biggest mistake couples make is waiting too long before they get help. Because relationships are complex, like learning to drive a car is complex. Like imagine you were given a car for your 18th birthday, and it wasn't an automatic. It was a car, where you had to change the gears with a clutch and an accelerator and a brake. And nobody taught you how to drive this thing. It would be almost impossible to figure out how to drive a car on your own without destroying the engine or the gearbox or having an accident within the first few days. Can you imagine learning how to balance the clutch and the accelerator? I mean, if nobody told you what a clutch did or what an accelerator did or what even the gear shift even did, there's like, this system is so complex. It's like 1,000 things you have to practice and learn how to do. It's hard enough when somebody tells you what to do, like to learn how to pull the car off or to parallel park, like the same thing applies in relationships. They are that complex. You'd sit in the car and you'd look in the car and go, what does this stick here? What does this do? Why have I got these 3 pedals down here by my feet? What do they do? Steering wheel. Okay, that one I could figure out. I've seen people move the steering wheel, but I don't know what anything else here does, right? Same thing in your relationship. Trying to figure out your relationship challenges on your own is even more complex than learning to drive a car on your own without instruction. And to think that you can do it on your own, well, it's a nice thought and it's understandable, but it's not going to happen. Like, you won't figure out your problems on your own unless you're incredibly lucky and you had amazing parents who had a ridiculously fantastic relationship and they modeled for you what to do. And unconsciously, through watching them as a young child, you picked up from them and absorbed what to do. But if you're having relationship problems right now, I can guarantee you didn't have those parents. And that's why you're having relationship problems right now. And you have no clue what to do. And if you follow conventional wisdom, you're going to fail, because conventional wisdom says things like, if you're having troubles in your relationship, you're probably with the wrong person. You should just find a better mate. Or, it's conventional wisdom things is, if you're having trouble communicating, you need to learn some communication skills. Wrong. It doesn't have anything to do with communication skills. When you were falling in love, you didn't need communication skills to talk. You both speak the same language. You don't need more communication skills. You know how to communicate. It's actually about connection and emotional safety. And there's a lot that goes on in the complex relationship. Like, understanding the psychology of one human being is hard enough. Understanding the psychology of 2 human beings is a whole nother level. Understanding the psychology of 2 human beings in relationship that create a third entity called the relationship. That's like understanding quantum physics. It's like rocket science. And I'm not trying to say I'm super smart and I understand it, but I've spent 10 years studying this stuff, and there's still more for me to learn to understand the relationship dynamics. And every couple I work with is different, and I learn something new from every couple. So that's the level of complexity we're dealing with. And I like that metaphor, because I think everybody who's learned to drive remembers how hard it was and how confusing it was in the beginning to figure out all these things at the same time. Without an instructor, or a family member showing you, it wouldn't have happened. You know?
True, true. It's not possible that you wouldn't have actually collided or bumped into another car and still,
Yeah, you would have crashed the car,
without
destroyed the
any
car, had an accident, hurt somebody, killed somebody, you know, like, and that's what we're doing in our relationships. None of us have licenses to be in relationship with another. You don't need a license to fall in love these days. It should come with, like, if you fall in love, you immediately have to go to couples training and get your license to be in a relationship, so that you know what the hell you're doing and you don't hurt each other.
Yeah, I think it should come up with a manual. This is what you're getting into.
Exactly.
Just read it properly. Yeah, but I think
Exactly.
even if you're separating, no, it's very important to get help, because at least to understand that why you didn't work out together, that it was not someone was in particular, one of the person was responsible for that. Just to understand and have that peace of mind, so
Yeah.
that you can move on with, with no baggage on your mind and with peace. I think that then also help really counts a lot. Anyway, tell our viewers where all they can find you. How can they reach out to you? How can they connect with you in case of any
Sure.
purpose?
If you want to learn more about my work, I have a free relationship help course. It's a 7-day program where I teach you a whole bunch of skills and ideas about how to thrive in your relationship. And my website where you can get that is Love at First Fight
First fight.
with an F. Not Love at
Yeah.
First Sight, Love at First Fight.
First fight. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much, Bruce. It was, I mean, you shifted actually a lot of perspectives for me while talking to you. I, in fact, revealed many new perspectives to me. I was not thinking in those terms, and I was not even exposed to some of these things. So you really laid it down for me, and I'm sure that whatever conversation we have had here, even my viewers it would be really helpful for them. So thank you so much, and I really, really value all your time and energy that you gave here, your wisdom, your knowledge that you shared with me. Thank you so much. I mean, I know in quarantine time, whatever, you're doing a great job. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time too. This was fun.